coffee.
I'm just starting the YouTube stream.
Cheers.
All right, you should be all set, Senator Carson.
Thank you, Erin. Good morning and welcome. I am Senator Sharon Carson from District 14. Today, we will be holding a meeting of the Senate Committee on Executive Departments and Administration. Before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting that we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As the chair of the Senate Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that 1, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom or YouTube and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the general court website. 2, we have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. 3, we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us or call area code 603-271-6931. 4, in the event the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. 5, please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. 6, finally, let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state where they are and if anyone else is in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I will call the roll. Senator Reagan.
I'm in my office by myself.
Thank you. Senator Ricciardi.
Good morning. I'm in our home in Bedford. I'm alone in the room, but I have construction going on, so I hope you don't hear too much background noise.
Thank you. Senator Kavanaugh.
I'm Kevin Kavanaugh, my office in Concord, and I am alone.
Thank you. Senator Prentice.
Good morning, Senator Prentice. I'm in my home in West Lebanon, New Hampshire. I am alone, but my husband and trusty dog Maisie are in the house with me.
And Senator Carson, I am at my home in Londonderry. My daughter is in the adjacent room along with my 2 puppies and my cat, who may or may not decide to make a Zoom appearance. It depends on how he feels. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to open the public hearing on House Bill 137 and recognize the prime sponsor, Representative Ober.
Unfortunately, Senator Carson, I don't see her on the Zoom attendees list. It doesn't look like she's signed on.
Is she in the waiting room, perhaps?
Representative Ober, if you're here, could you please raise your hand? I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. We'll call on Representative McGuire.
Good morning, Senator and members of the committee.
Good morning.
I'm Carol McGuire, representing Merrimack District 29, Allenstown, Epsom, and Pittsfield. And House Bill 137 went through my committee unanimously with no amendments, and we fully support the idea. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you very much, Representative. Does the committee have any questions?
Senator Reagan has his hand raised.
Senator Reagan?
So Representative McGuire, I'm struggling to see the reasoning behind this legislation.
What it does is it puts the technical documents that describe how the state telephone system and the cybersecurity protocols and exempts them from rulemaking. At least part of it is so that we don't have to put those manuals and procedures into the proper rulemaking procedure, proper rulemaking language, which is favored by lawyers and totally unintelligible to the engineers and technicians who need to use these. So that's one thing. The other is that the cybersecurity documents probably don't want to be public in many cases. So that's another reason to exempt them from rulemaking.
So what is it what rulemaking must they comply with?
I'm afraid their regular rulemaking on dealing with the public, which is in their case is fairly minimal. Not much, really. I am not familiar with as familiar with this office as Representative Ober is.
Okay, are there any further questions for Representative McGuire? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Representative McGuire. Representative McGuire, I'm going to ask you to stay, if you can, through the next two bills because they are all Representative Ober's bills, and I don't think she's going to be here today. So just in case, so that way you can at least introduce the bills to the committee and perhaps speak to the actions of the House ED&A committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I do have to leave at 9:30, but I will stay until then.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, do we have anyone in the waiting room, Aaron, who would like to speak to this bill?
I do see Dennis Goulet.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and put through Mr. Goulet?
Mr. Goulet, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Dennis Goulet. I'm the Commissioner for the Department of Information Technology. This bill was introduced in last session and didn't, I think would have passed had it not been bundled in an omnibus bill. Really, it's essentially was written to address a audit finding in our most recent LVA audit. And what they found was that, DOIT has not ever done any rulemaking, nor do we actually have rulemaking authority. Our governing body is established in RSA 21R as the Information Technology Council, and there's details in 21R that detail that. There are 2 House members on that body. The disconnect was that there was language saying that in 541A that referred to rulemaking, but we didn't actually have rulemaking authority. So all this is a technical clarification. And it allows me to tick off another audit finding. We've been kind of trying to methodically address all of the audit findings. So I think there's been relatively little controversy on this so far. And I would ask the committee to please move it forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner Goulet. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with this idea that it's a department that's exempt from rulemaking.
Senator Reagan, we actually haven't ever done any rulemaking. We don't actually officially have rulemaking authority. So when the audit found this discrepancy, there were two ways of approaching it. One was to establish rulemaking for DOIT, or the other was to clarify, because we already have a publicly transparent governing body, which is the Information Technology Council. So we have actually never been authorized to do rulemaking. So our policies and our procedures are governed under the Information Technology Council.
Are there any further questions for Commissioner Goulet? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
You're welcome. I'll mute, but I'll stay on for I think the next two are mine as well.
Yes, they are. Okay, terrific. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Are there any other folks in the waiting room, Aaron?
I don't see any other people, Senator Carson.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing on House Bill 137. We have 1 minute before we start the next bill.
Actually, Senator Carson, we scheduled these in 10-minute increments instead of the usual 15.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing on House Bill 302. Has Representative Ober signed in at all or in the waiting room?
I don't see Representative Ober, unfortunately.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and call on Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senators. I'm Carol McGuire of Merrimack District 29, and House Bill 302 is to clarify that municipalities have the authority to use electronic records at their discretion, and it gives some guidelines what they have to do. It still leaves DOIT with the authority to set standards, and accept electronic signatures. It's just that the municipalities the statute had previously required DOIT to set standards and municipalities to use them. And this makes it clear that the municipalities are not responsible for following that.
Okay, thank you, Representative McGuire. Senator Reagan has a question.
Same question. No rules?
No, sir. The municipalities have told us that they follow industry standard best practices for creating and maintaining electronic documents. But unless we're going to fund them, we can't impose standards on them.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Representative McGuire, Section 2A, just the word may. So this, just in the spirit of this, it is that here are the standards for going to electronic records at the municipal level, but they don't have to do it. But if they do it, this is how.
Yes, and also they don't need to follow these standards if they have a suitable standard they are already using.
Okay.
Some municipalities are very far along in using electronic records. Others are just barely looking into it. So we hope that as a municipality moves towards electronic records, they will follow these standards. But if they already have their own established procedure, then that's good for them.
Yes, follow up, Senator?
Just a statement. Where I live in Lebanon and represent, we're, I would say, reasonably far along in making the transition between paper and electronic records, and have done a really good job with this. So I think that Lebanon serves as one of the models and could help other communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Representative McGuire? Seeing none, thank you, Representative. Why don't we get Commissioner Goulet?
Commissioner Goulet, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, I have unmuted, and this is Commissioner Goulet again. So this bill was initiated at the request of the New Hampshire Municipal Association and the City of Lebanon. It came about, so thank you, Senator Prentice. Came about as a early in the COVID. Lebanon was enabled to continue what they were doing by virtue of the governor's executive order as it related to some things related to electronic signatures, et cetera. So, but it did create concern that on an ongoing basis, Lebanon would be, and other municipalities would be constrained. DOIT does have standards that may or may not always be applicable at a political subdivision level. So, I don't believe we necessarily add value. We consult with these entities generally through the municipal association as needed, and we always try to be helpful. But I don't feel like it's valuable or important that we have authority over this.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Commissioner. Are there questions for the Commissioner? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Let's go to Margaret Burns.
Ms. Burns, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Margaret Burns. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I am here in support of House Bill 302. As Commissioner Goulet said, this was by request and conversation, many conversations that we had with him and his department. So just to give a little bit of background of where this is coming from. Over the past several years, many municipalities have been transitioning from paper to electronic documents and signatures as a way of becoming more efficient and saving money. And Senator Prentice has already mentioned Lebanon, and I believe Sean Mulholland, the city manager, is here this morning to speak to that as well. When the pandemic hit, the need for operating virtually and using electronic records became even more apparent and even necessary in many circumstances to allow for social distancing and virtual operations to take place. However, in reading the applicable law, which is RSA 294E, it would appear that by the letter of the law, political subdivisions have authority to use electronic records and signatures only if standards have been adopted by the Secretary of State and the Department of Information Technology. I think at best, this law is ambiguous, and what has happened is municipalities have moved forward with electronic records use, but the law has simply not caught up to what is the practice that's currently happening. The standards have been adopted by the Department of Information Technology for the state many years ago. So there are standards in place for state departments to use for electronic records and signatures, but there are still no standards for cities, towns, or other political subdivisions. And this is now 20 years having passed from the passage of RSA 294-E with no standards being in place for political subdivisions. And to Commissioner Goulet's point, the state does have authority with respect to executive department and state standards and cybersecurity standards, but they don't actually have any overarching or regulatory authority over political subdivisions. So having them be in a position to have to adopt and create and manage standards for all the political subdivisions also doesn't really make sense from that standpoint either. But we do work with DOIT to provide training and resources. So municipalities are absolutely not on their own in moving forward with electronic records and things of that nature. So to try to make a long story short, once we sort of realized that there was a potential ambiguity with 294E, Governor Sununu included in Emergency Order 23 authority for municipalities to use electronic records and signatures so that there would be no ambiguity during the pandemic. At the same time, we began talking with Commissioner Goulet, and we worked out the language that is now House Bill 302 to rectify the problem. In a nutshell, what the bill does is it would allow DOT to adopt standards or helpful information for political subdivisions to use, but also makes it clear that 294E does not prohibit municipalities from using electronic records and signatures. The legislation also creates an important congruity between 294-E and RSA 33-A, the municipal records statute, which was amended back in 2016 to allow municipalities to maintain records in a digital format, as opposed to microfilm, which had been the option to paper up until 2016. So I think this bill would also bring congruity between those two statutes. And obviously, I'm happy to take questions or provide any further clarification I can.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Burns. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Reagan?
So my question to you would be, do you see that we don't need to have any rules written down for anybody to understand what all of this means?
I think that rules and policies are important, but what you're seeing is that as municipalities move forward with digital records, they are adopting local policies based on the advice from either the firm they hire to handle their digital records and cybersecurity, or from their risk liability management. Many municipalities use Primex, and they actually provide training in this area and resources in this area. So written rules and guidelines are important, but they really belong on the local level, not a burden on the state to try to adopt for municipalities statewide.
But what about on the state end of it?
For state departments?
Yeah. Or the
I
state
don't-
responsibilities or limits.
I don't see a role here for the state to adopt specific rules and standards for municipalities to follow at the local level, just because there's no regulatory ability on the part of the Department of Information Technology with regard to municipalities. So I don't see a need for state level standards for local use of digital records and signatures. I hope I'm getting to the key of your question. I apologize if I'm not.
No, that's all I have.
Okay, Senator Prentice?
I was just going to do, thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Reagan, are you asking, should the state, for the way the state conducts their business in this arena, not the municipalities, that there are rules written for the state agency?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where, okay, so that's the question.
Thank you, Senator Prentice. Thank you, Senator Reagan. For the state, and of course, Commissioner Goulet can address this even better than I can, but there are standards adopted for state agencies. There's a booklet of standards that you can actually find online for state departments and agencies to follow when using digital records. But of course, that's a state level issue, not a municipal issue. So I don't have significant familiarity with those standards.
Yes, continue, Senator Prentice.
So I think that becomes the question. And is this an area where we need to have rulemaking authority, and it might even be, if this document is, something that is updated routinely, is it referenced in rule, or is it adopted by rule? I just think that's the question that I'm hearing, and I think we need a little clarity on. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions from the committee for Ms. Burns? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Burns. Next, we're going to go to Sean Mulholland.
Mr. Mulholland, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, good morning. My name is Sean Mulholland, the city manager in the city of Lebanon. and I helped draft some of the initial language on this, working with NHMA and DOIT. So I just look at it from a different perspective. I think there's a lot of collaborative work and partnership that we need to do with DOIT, and the commissioner has gone a long way in fostering that relationship. We had a cyber security conference, which was, shall we say, sold out. It was maxed out the number of municipalities that participated in that, because there is a need to have very close cooperation with DOIT, Secretary of State, and Admin Services. So this bill, I think, this clarifies some of the ambiguities that might be there, but there's going to be a strong need for relationship with the state and working on the cybersecurity initiatives together. There's no way we can separate ourselves from the state. There are also some connections, and I think where Senator Regan is going on this, where we interface with state systems, there should be rules, and there are rules. For instance, where our law enforcement interfaces with the SPOTS computers, there are rules that are in place on how to use those, and those are under DOS and under federal law. But as we go on, there will be direct interface with state programs, and the state is going to have rules on those and how we do that. You can't have a municipality that doesn't have its cybersecurity preventative measures in place and then interface a state system and contaminate that state system, or allow others to hack into that. So there's going to be some rule making requirements to do that, that if a municipality is going to interface with that, they're going to have to do that. But that's not what this bill is. This bill talks about the other functions that municipalities use. And even though we don't have administrative rules, the guidelines would be helpful. And obviously this law has been in effect since 2001, and DOIT has not done that. And that's not a criticism of them. That's not their primary function. Their primary function is making sure the state agencies operate effectively. But we could use that relationship, and we're building that relationship with DOIT for that collaborative approach. And it's going to be necessary as we move on in the future. But this bill just allows us to do things, quite frankly, that we've been doing for the last 20 years. We've been using electronic signatures. We've been using electronic documents. And the law should be clear that we're allowed to do that without further requirements of DOIT. But again, that guidance is going to be helpful going forward. And I see a stronger relationship with municipalities in the state as we deal with this difficult issue of cybersecurity moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Mulholland. Are there questions from the committee? So, Mr. Mulholland, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what this is. Do you see this as a first step in establishing that relationship between the state and the municipalities when it comes to issues of cybersecurity and technology?
Yeah, I think that we need to get guidelines working with the state. There should be some body that works on these guidelines together, because we really need their help. The smallest of towns in our state, they don't have anybody to work with them to do that. It would be helpful if we could get that guidance and working as a team with DOIT. But I don't believe Commissioner Goulet has the resources to do that right now. And that's the problem. But yes, there is a compelling need to have that relationship with Primex, NHMA, DOIT, and the municipalities to work on this issue together.
Right. Do you see the need for rulemaking authority at this point in time in order to do this?
Only when it applies to when municipalities are directly interfacing with other state software programs. You should have rules, and you do in many cases already, because you need to be able to protect your systems. But you already have a lot of those, and they're under different departments when you're accessing those programs. And some of them don't have rules at all. I don't know which ones in particular. I'm sure you've got that circumstance, but I know there are rules like with the SPOTS computer for law enforcement, things like that. But as that grows, you're going to have rules to require municipalities to do that, because some municipalities are rather sophisticated and others are not, and you've got to protect your systems. But in general, municipalities should be able to work with DOIT to develop guidelines to ensure that their other programs meet those standards to protect people's personal identifying information and ensuring that we don't have corruption of our systems. Our SCADA systems that run our water treatment plants and our sewer treatment plants, they have got to be safe, because the impact on the public transcends just one town or city. If you have a wastewater treatment plant that's not secure, its computer system is not secure, and it's pumping chemicals or raw waste into a river, it's going to affect people all the way downstream, other municipalities. So there's a need to have guidelines together and then rules in the right places where there's direct interface with state software programs.
Okay, I have another question, please. One thing that if you had the ability to have these administrative rules in place is that it would standardize, that every municipality would be able to do the same thing. Do you think that that's a good idea at this point in time?
The problem I think you're going to have is the city of Lebanon. I have 186 employees in very, very sophisticated systems, and a small town with 2 employees simply can't afford to do that. And they may not need to have that level of security depending upon what it is that they're doing. It's going to be difficult to craft rules that apply to everybody. And not only that, this environment changes so quickly. The time it takes to make administrative rules, put them into place, is going to create a challenge to be able to do that through GelCar.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Mulholland? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
And Aaron, do we have anyone in the waiting room who would like to speak?
Commissioner Goulet has his hand raised.
Okay, terrific. Let's put him through again. Good morning, Commissioner, again.
Hello. I just wanted to clarify, because some of that, I had some answers to some of those questions that came up. We actually have a lot of rules already in place for the executive branch, and it does end up, as Mr. Mulholland indicated, it does end up impacting municipalities. And I'll just give you our basic approach and then some examples. We take a baseline plus approach, and what that means is that we have a baseline for protecting security and privacy of data that we apply to all state agencies, and we would expect that anybody else we interacted with, whether it's a vendor partner or a political subdivision, would adhere to those rules. Additionally, there are rules promulgated from other entities such as the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, IRS, the Employment Security, CJIS, Criminal Justice Information System, which comes from the FBI, and PCI, Payment Card Industry. All of those then layer standards above and beyond the baseline rules that we apply. So, and we're almost continuously audited on that. I mean, one of our challenges is to be audited all the time and still be doing our jobs, frankly. So an attempt to administer rulemaking on this would be difficult and potentially in conflict with the federal rules that allow us to accept federal funds. I would suggest that it's not necessary. We're continually moving our cyber posture forward. I will also state that there is a Senate bill, and it's one of the omnibus bills. I'm not remembering exactly which one, that we have some language in as it relates to municipal cybersecurity. And there were really 2 things there. And one of them in that bill, one of them directly goes to your question. And that is a suggestion, not a mandate, a suggestion for standards for cybersecurity for political subdivisions. And that would be the Center for Internet Security, or CIS, controls. And the reason we like those controls for political subdivisions is they're really easy to understand, and they can be taken in an incremental way. As Mr. Mulholland pointed out, every subdivision has its own ability to deliver based on its size and level of sophistication. So we think that raising the water for all of them is a good thing. And I think, going to that question about should we have standards, we think that is a really good standard. It evolves over time. It's a very strong standard, and it gives political subdivisions something to measure themselves against. Additionally, the other part of that bill does require political subdivisions to report a significant cyber incident. And that isn't because we necessarily want to control them, but as Mr. Mulholland pointed out, we do connect to law enforcement through spots and through the town clerks for registration DMV information. So if a political subdivision were to have a problem, we'd want to know about it so we could manage the risk to the state, as well as potentially help them with their problem if they need our help. But Additionally, Primex, who I believe covers all the SAUs and the vast majority of all our political subdivisions, we are in close partnership with Primex and NHMA on the development of the cyber program for political subdivisions, and we will continue to do that. And we're also seeking federal funds, grant funds to help with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Goulet? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Aaron, is there anyone else?
Senator Carson, I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on House Bill 302. Okay, next we're going to move into House Bill 425. By chance, is Representative McGuire still available, or is she?
It doesn't look like Representative McGuire is here.
Okay, and I see Representative Ober probably is not here either, correct?
She isn't. Correct.
Okay. I will go ahead and introduce House Bill 425. For the record, my name is Sharon Carson. I have the pleasure of representing Senate District 14, comprising the towns of Hudson, Londonderry, and Auburn. And I have for your consideration this morning House Bill 425, which seeks to establish certain technical committees and a cybersecurity advisory committee in the Department of Information Technology. I don't have anyone that is signed up to speak here. I hope Commissioner Goulet is still here and he can speak to the bill.
Commissioner Goulet, you should be all set.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak on this. The Cybersecurity Advisory Committee was established in 2016 under executive order by Governor Hassan. The reason we did it at the time with executive order is we were learning about cybersecurity and how to manage it well. And we didn't want to, we wanted to inch along, but we had felt at the time that getting this in statute would be important. And so the bill before you takes a body that already exists, that's already been operating very effectively, and brings it into statute. And you heard me testify before about our baseline plus approach to security and privacy for executive branch agencies. The Cybersecurity Advisory Committee, or CAC, helps us establish those baselines. And in particular, cybersecurity is important, but sometimes has made the mistake of stopping legitimate business activity through cyber policies. And so we certainly don't want to do that. And the CAC really helps us with that. So we bring forward ideas, policy ideas, new things to help protect data. We vet them through all of the agencies who are extremely well represented. This is, in fact, I have a CAC meeting at 10 o'clock today. We do it monthly. And so introduce ideas, vet them, and then we bring them to the IT Council for ratification. So it really is and you heard me speak about the IT Council, that's our governing body. So it's been extremely effective in terms of having cyber policy that's effective for the state that doesn't negatively affect any one agency or more than one agency by virtue of our lack of understanding of how they're doing business. No controversy here whatsoever at the agency level. We get great participation in this body. We also have represented on the CAC the other branches of government, legislative and judicial. So we really are trying to spread the wealth there and make sure we're looking at a whole of state approach. Thank you.
Hey, are there any questions for the commissioner? Commissioner, I just have a quick question. So you are looking to establish these committees from within your department?
Really, what we'd like to do is this committee already exists. It was established under executive order. We just want to move that into statute for permanency.
Okay. Okay. Are there any further questions for the commissioner? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all.
Aaron, are there folks in the waiting room at all?
It doesn't look like anyone has their hand raised, Senator Carson.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing on House Bill 425. Okay, executive order. Okay, just want to write that down. Okay, we can exec some bills. I don't know how you feel about execing the bills we heard today, but let's take up the bills that we heard last week. So can I get a motion to move into executive session? Moved by Senator Prentice. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Kavanaugh. The first one let's take up is House Bill 117.
Senator Carson, there needs to be a vote to go.
Oh,
into
that's right.
executive
I'm
session.
sorry. You need the roll
Okay.
call. Okay, Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Reagan,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Okay, why don't we take up House Bill 117 relative to the use of force at New Hampshire National Guard facilities. Is there a motion on this bill? Okay, I will move ought to pass. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Reagan. Is there any discussion on the ought to pass motion?
My understanding is this puts us in compliance with a federal regulation.
Yes, that's the testimony that we had. Okay, is there any further discussion on House Bill 117? Excuse me. Okay, saying none, I will call the rolls. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Okay, is there motion
consent.
for the consent? Senator Kavanaugh moves consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Senator Reagan. Is there any discussion on the consent motion? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Is there anyone who would like to take this one out, just for the little blurb thing?
I will.
Okay, Senator Kavanaugh will do the blurb. Okay, next we have House Bill 318, proclaiming the daring jumping spider to be the state spider of New Hampshire.
Move
Senator
on, pass.
Prentice. Senator Prentice moves on to pass, seconded by Senator Reagan. Is there any discussion on making this spider the state spider for New Hampshire? I would just like to commend the teacher and their students for a team spider for all the hard work they did on this. As someone who's a little squishy about spiders, I commend these kids for going out and learning about spiders and the benefits of having this particular spider be our state spider. And I think they did a terrific job for advocating for their position. And I hope that this was a good experience for them to learn in practice how their government works and how easy it is to come to your government and say, hey, we like this idea. What do you think? So again, I commend the teacher and Team Spider for all their hard work. And hopefully we will get a New Hampshire state spider. Okay, so we have an ought to pass motion on House Bill 318. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Do you want this to go on to consent, or do you think that,
Yes. Move consent.
okay, Senator Prentice seconds. Okay, any discussion on the consent calendar motion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Senator Prentice, would you like to take this one out?
Love to.
Okay. Okay, all right. Next, we have House Bill 356, relative to the City of Manchester Employees Contributory Retirement System.
Move on to pass.
Okay, Senator Reagan moves on to pass. Senator Kavanaugh seconds. Is there any discussion on the ought to pass motion? Okay, seeing none, looks like all this does is they need to retain their tax exempt status, and they need to change some things to come in line with federal regulations. So I don't really see this as being a problem. So we have an ought to pass motion. Are there any further comments or? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Is there a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second?
Senator Reagan moves consent, seconded by Senator Kavanaugh. Any discussion on the consent motion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Senator Kavanaugh, would you like to do this one?
Absolutely.
Okay, and let's go to House Bill 377. This is relative to the authority of the state fire marshal to grant an exemption from fire code requirements to recovery housing. Is there a motion on this bill?
Move on to pass.
Senator Kavanaugh moves on to pass. Is there a seconded by Senator Prentice? Is there any discussion on the ought to pass motion? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
okay, Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
Senator Carson, yes. Okay, is there a motion for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Moved by Senator Reagan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Kavanaugh. Okay, is there any discussion on the consent motion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Senator Kavanaugh, would you like to take this one out as
Sure.
well?
Yep.
Okay. That takes care of what we did last week. Are there any today that you would like to take up?
I'd like to get a legal opinion on this idea that DOIT doesn't need any instructions to give to anybody through an administrative rule. I
Okay,
think they're treading on thin ice here. And they'll wind up in a courtroom, and then the judge will say, what do your rules say? And there won't be any.
okay,
And so the
Okay.
sponsors and DOIT, and I'm a big fan, and I was instrumental in creating that commissioner spot for IT.
okay,
And this is just the first time they've run into this. And that, I guess maybe the answer is they don't have to have rules, but we know there's very few areas that are exempt from rules
okay.
for good reason.
Okay, Senator Prentice?
I just want to say that I agree with Senator Reagan. I think it's prudent to get this opinion and make sure that we're on, that we're on solid ground. And if there is thin ice, then we're going to need to move it back to the department to be addressed.
Okay, sounds like a plan then. We will go ahead and try to get some information, perhaps from the department itself, their attorney, and we can certainly consult with Mr. Lehman and get his opinion as well.
Yeah.
So is there anything else to come in front of the committee this morning? Okay, Senator Prentice?
I just, as a follow-up to that statement, again, we've done a lot of work in Lebanon and I value and honor that work. But I just even think for us and for all communities that this is just it's prudent to make sure that we, that if rulemaking needs to be done, that for the state, on the state side, that's covered. So.
Okay,
So I'm not against these bills. I just want to do the process, make sure the process is followed correctly. That's all. Thank you.
No, I think that's a great idea. We need to get that clarified so we can feel comfortable with this. Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to come out of executive session? Senator Prentice moves, seconded by Senator Kavanaugh. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Reagan,
Yes.
Senator Carson, yes. Okay, I just would like to remind everyone, we don't have any more bills to hear, and we won't until the House meets next week. So that being said, we will not meet next week. We really don't have anything to do. So just mark your calendars accordingly, and we will see each other, well, tomorrow anyway, for session. But thank you all for your hard work so far. We've got a little more left to do to finish out the year, and I will see about getting this information for the committee. So when we do come back, we can go ahead and exec those bills or make changes if they need them. Okay, so can I get a motion for us to conclude our business today? Senator Prentice moves.
Motion to adjourn. Yep.
And there is a second from Senator Rishardi to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, since it's 9:55, which is pretty good for us, I will go ahead and call the roll. Senator Rishardi,
Yes.
Senator Prentice,
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Senator Reagan,
Yes.
and Senator Carson, yes. Thank you very much to Aaron and to Cam for all your help this morning, and we will see you all soon. Take care, everyone.